and we're into October. And today's discussion, I'm sure, will fascinate you for at least 5 minutes. It's titled Trump's Fascist Propaganda Machine, a lesson in manipulating the masses. While others on social media, legacy TV, and printed press focus on what I believe to be minor Trumpian views such as the Epstein files, his probable dementia, and possible failing health, and I agree with Steve Schmidt when he says, quote, "The Democratic leadership of Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries does not understand the nature of the fight in which they are engaged. It is not about policy. When the history of this era is written and the events of this past September 2025 are analyzed, will anybody say that the dominant issue was Obamacare and health care subsidies? For myself, I try to bring you all a fresh and interpretive view and understanding of what I believe are the most relevant and existential threats to our democracy, without distraction or condescension. And with that in mind, I'm taking a day off from podcasting about events, however tragic or disreputable they may be, to talk about one thing: propaganda. It is so easy to get distracted, like Schumer and Jeffries, especially when the gargantuan lies, misinformation, and diversions that emanate from the Nazi Trump regime camp in replication of the Hitler and Goebbels playbook fill the airways, filtering down to a sleeping, dysfunctional, indifferent public mass and simple-minded followers of this absolutely crazy, insane, functional psychotic with Nazi ideas. To understand Trump's use of propaganda and the 30,000 fact-checked lies he told in his first White House stint, we need to look at what Hitler said in Mein Kampf. Hitler outlines his theory of propaganda based on his observations of effective British and ineffective German propaganda during World War I. Hitler argues that propaganda is not about conveying objective truth, but is a psychological tool for manipulating the masses towards a very specific political goal. The core principles of propaganda Hitler sets forth, and with several foundational principles for effective propaganda. 1. He targets the masses, not intellectuals. He insists that propaganda must appeal to the emotions and feelings of the broad masses, not the intellect of the highly educated. Its intellectual level must therefore be very low, low enough to be understood by the least intellectual person in the crowd. Also, he relies on simplicity and repetition. To persuade the masses, propaganda must be reduced to a very few simple, emotionally resonant points. These core messages must be repeated constantly over time to ensure they are absorbed and remembered. One-sided perspective. Propaganda must not present both sides of an issue with, quote-unquote, academic fairness. Instead, it should unflinchingly emphasize its own rightness and ignore any facts that might favor the enemy. The Kellyanne Conway theory of alternative facts. Ring a bell? And finally, it's an appeal, in this propaganda is an appeal to emotion over reason. Hitler believed that emotions, not logic, were what moved the masses to action. Effective propaganda should awaken the public's imagination through an appeal to their feelings and find the psychological form that will capture their hearts. Now, from Hitler to Trump. Trump may be an absolute moron, but he's a clever one, like a shark in the water. And those in the shadows calling all the important shots are really the more dangerous ones, and our superficial reportage, yes, reportage that's absolutely insanely stupid, and coverage of the sidebar issues diminishes the opportunities we have to challenge the immediate and unlawful grab of power. It plays right into the fascist hands. From 2017, when I started my podcast warning about autocracy and authoritarianism, I've not been perfect. I've not featured sophisticated equipment and production techniques, and I'm far off from perfect in my own exposition. But I have been in the very forefront of every serious issue before, during, and after they have arisen, while others have missed the boat. I am an apolitical humanist who believes in freedom, equal rights, and a constitutional order based on a full set of democratic principles just like those of Thomas Paine. And I've been a law advocate, a theater director, and teacher in a past life. I work on my own. I'm not funded. I earn no money from my podcasts and am largely marginalized. But on I go in my dotage, explicating and speaking truth to power. I was the first to talk about and explain the laws and legal concepts in play, such as judicial deference, martial law, the Insurrection Act, posse comitatus, writ of habeas corpus, the Bill of Rights, writs of mandamus, also citing to the Constitution, federal statutes, and black-letter law, while others may have explained legal documents to you, but never discussed at the time when it really mattered all of the above. When all the clever pundits slept, I was the only one to lambaste Biden and Garland for their incompetence and indolence, who, the pair of them, who in large part led us down into this dark abyss. And I was the first to predict the coming fascist dictatorship, which has now been forcefully and quickly implemented. As Thomas Paine stated in his influential pamphlet, Common Sense, quote, "Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one." Unquote. And I would say and submit, there's nothing we experience now that proves the observation wrong. Thank you. Please subscribe, comment, give me a like. Let's build this podcast into a small network.